Welcome to Take It from the Iron Woman. My name is Susanne Müller, your host and the Iron Woman. This podcast is about empowering yourself and others to make real changes in the world. You will hear from everyday, smart, sophisticated, hip people like you and me. Not everybody has to be an Iron Woman to impress the world. Together, we will learn from the sports and business leaders how you can become a more successful person as an entrepreneur or a leader. It's one step at a time, one day at a time. Take your steps now. Take your big steps now. Join me on this journey to success. Take It from the Iron Woman. We only have special guests. We spoke to Robert Slater already, but we have more episodes with him talking about triathlon and leadership. And I always have a question. I mean, we've spoken about sports and then you mentioned leadership. And I know in your profession, what do you think you can learn from training for an Ironman or participating in an Ironman or swimming, biking, running? What can you transfer into the business world and into leadership?
I think there are quite a few things that can be transferred. I think sticking at something and compartmentalizing things, sticking at all of those individually, but trying to maintain a balance between them all, maintaining work-life balance. But also the percentage game is important as well. There's no point in trying to really rush it too much. I think Ironman's got there's that great sort of background thing of that percentage gain comes from small amounts of change each week. And if you just focus on those, then gradually you just suddenly realize that on race day, things feel pretty good. You can go through some very tiring points during the training process, but planning carefully, sticking to the process, being aware that you might have to change sometimes. Sometimes in training, if you're injured, then you're just not going to carry on training a particular way. You have to change direction. And I think in business, sometimes you have to change direction. There's no point in banging on down the same route. The other thing I think for me is that when doing an Ironman race, there are so many people supporting you. The supporters that come out are there from sometimes 5 o'clock in the morning. I remember arriving at my first Ironman in Wales. The sun was rising, golden sunrise, and 10,000 people cheered us as we arrived on the beach. And I still get goosebumps on my neck thinking about that. Sometimes business, it can be like that as well. It can be really, really exciting. And I think that if you have good support from the support staff that you have, then that's really golden. This morning I was talking to one of probably my most junior member of staff, and I was talking to her about how she needed to make sure that she has a voice, that if she feels that could be doing something better, that she feels that she can say something, particularly where there are two people who she looks at as leaders. Then it's best that we all find out what each other are doing so that we can learn from each other, rather than having a negative sort of situation where we're just sort of saying, oh, well, he's doing that, they're all doing it differently. If we're aware that we're doing things differently and look at it positively, then we can actually learn from that. And again, in triathlon, sometimes you're doing something one way, you get stuck in a routine, and sometimes you think, well, let's try it that way, and suddenly things get easier and you find another route and you actually do a better time that year, or you feel less tired afterwards. One thing that for me with triathlon, particularly long distance, was finding out that if I did a really long walk the next day, however tired I felt, I was always recovering much better and less stiff. But it only happened because I ended up going for a walk to get some food and ended up politely talking to somebody who'd done a race, and they took me on this very long walk. So I was just listening to her and chatting away, and suddenly realized I'd been walking for an hour, and had I done something wrong here? Was I going to suffer? But found out that I was recovering a lot quicker as a result of that. So that's something that I've stuck with me.
That's interesting. And tell us a little bit more about the support. Before we recorded, you told me the story about your Ironman in Norway. I thought that was so inspirational. Sometimes when we, especially people who come and watch us, they want to talk about sports and the bike or the running shoes or whatever. But it is about the supporters who are alongside the roads. I mean, I remember there was one lady telling me you have to dig deeper on the bike. I still remember her. And on the run, there was a person and she says, we'll see you when you come back. And I know it got dark. And I said to her, are you really going to be there? And she was there. And I said to her, thank you so much for being there for us. It got colder and darker, but they were there with their launch chair. They were there for us. So tell us a little bit about your experience. And especially, you just mentioned it so beautifully. It's about the support staff in the business as well, right? So you think you're the CEO, you're the top leader. It's all boiling down to the good support and the good team that you need.
Yes, that's right. I think when I did Ironman Norway, the support staff were very good. They also brought humour to the table as well. People were worried about the cold in Norway. And so when we were swimming in the lake the day before, we'd all sort of got in and thought, oh, it's a bit chilly. When I got off the plane, there was this cold wind that came and I thought, oh no, this is going to be really cold. And then when we did our race briefing, the guy was saying, I talked to this German chap who did the swim and I asked him what he felt the lake felt like. And he said, oh, it feels like about 16 degrees. And we tested it and it was 14 degrees. Our conclusion from that is it's 14 degrees, but feels like 16 degrees. That humour came throughout the race and on race day as well. But on the race morning, it was raining and thundering and lightning. And by the time we got onto the bike, it was torrential rain, sort of really felt the water seemed to be bouncing up a foot above the road surface. And of course, on the helmet that I was wearing, it was an aero helmet. So it felt like nuts and bolts were being pelted onto my head. And the storm went on like that for 2 hours. But for me, doing it, it was actually quite liberating, feeling like I was out in the Norwegian countryside. I felt quite warm. I'd got arm warmers on. I wasn't having a problem with that. Because I was exercising, it didn't really affect me too much. We were having a laugh about it. One guy came up to me on the bike and as we were cycling along and said, nice weather we're having. And this... At times, we were going down these switchbacks, down these steep hills, and I was getting nervous because it was quite wet. And I could see people waving red flags. And the red flags, because of the rain, I couldn't really tell whether they were warning signs for me to slow down. So I soon realized that there were actually Norwegian spectators with Norwegian flags waving them and supporting us. And they were doing that for hour after hour. We did 2 laps, and on the second loop, they were still there in their rain gear supporting us. And I was absolutely humbled by that. I really was. And then it warmed up later, and people were out drinking beer while we were running around these loops and enjoying themselves. But they were cheering us. It was just a lovely day. That really does make it, for me, the spectators. And the kids as well, high-fiving them as you're running along. It's just a wonderful experience. That's why I try and do one every year if I can. Unfortunately, couldn't do one this year.
Thank you so much, Rob, and good luck with everything. Take it from the Iron Woman. We have episodes every Monday, every Wednesday. Don't miss out. There is something for everybody. And Take It from the Iron Woman is also a book. You can get it on Amazon. It's a paperback or an ebook. Take It from the Iron Woman. See you next time.